Good morning. My name is Lynn Heaton. I'll be describing the special provisions we've included relative to this unique funding approach. We've got a team of other NDOT personnel here today and our advisors who we introduced that will also be pitching in with Q&A. So let's begin. First, some background. This project has been in the works for decades. It's the largest construction project in NDOT history and has significant safety, mobility, and economic benefits. In 2015, there was a study conducted on the benefits of the project, which included the following findings: $150 million in net user benefits. Mainly the value of time, in other words, a lower vehicle travel time brought on by less congestion and fewer delays, such as at busy intersections. Number two, $86 million in crash benefits, such as lower medical costs and costs of emergency services, prevention of negative impact of crashes on market productivity, and lower insurance premiums, legal fees, and property damage costs. And three, $14 million in net maintenance benefits. With traffic drawn from the existing Nebraska Highway 2, especially heavy trucks, there would be an ability to reduce maintenance and defer reconstruction or additional overlays on the existing roadway. So what would be our normal approach? Well, the project would be broken into 4 or 5 phases, and we'd let each phase as our cash flow permitted. But what would that mean? It would have meant an unconnected beltway built in pieces. A project that helps no one for up to 7 or 8 years. Prolongs headaches for everyone impacted by the project, and delays the user safety and economic benefits that I mentioned earlier. Simply put, we don't believe Nebraskans should have to wait and watch for 8 long years for the project to be finished if there is a better way. So a new approach was proposed in 2017. We spent the greater part of about 2 years examining options and identifying the way forward. What we'll do is we'll let the project all at once and deliver in 3 to 4 years. And we'll establish a payment schedule that matches our typical timeline. So what we've brought forward is a design bid build contract with deferred payments. NDOT will select the contractor who is the lowest responsible bidder pursuant to statute. We've established a maximum quarterly payment schedule. Fixed payments of no more than $7.5 million each quarter, or over whatever time period is necessary to pay the total contract price. Those fixed payments, the quarterly payments will begin no earlier than April 1, 2020. And that schedule is designed to roughly approximate NDOT's annual cost had the project been completed using the traditional approach. And it allows for the project to be completed in 3 to 4 years, as I mentioned, while preserving resources during the time of the construction to be made available for NDOT's statewide construction program. So how are the deferred payments handled? Deferred Contract Payment Certificates, or DCPCs, will be issued for the amounts earned but not paid in cash during the construction. The DCPCs are evidence of NDOT's obligation to make payments, subject to legally available funds. The DCPCs are paid at face value, meaning all financing costs are included in the contractor's bid. So contractors have the option of selecting financing solutions. NDOT is not requiring any particular solution or solutions. There are a number of options available to the contractors for funding the project during construction, such as self-financing, bank financing, bond financing, as well as the U.S. Department of Transportation Build America Bureau's TIFIA program, or the Transportation Infrastructure Financing and Innovation Act. We'll discuss the DCPCs a bit more later. So here's some details Jim mentioned. First, about the schedule. Each bidder will sign and submit a bid proposal, which includes the special provisions, and will post a bid bond. As noted on the last slide, the bid price will include the contractor's estimate of the cost of their financing. So NDOT will require that the unit prices reflect the actual cost to perform the work, including the finance cost and interest, which will be spread logically across the bid items. So now let's talk a bit about the selection of the lowest responsible bidder. Upon notification by the department, the apparent low bidder will submit to the department within 3 days the financial information required. This will include the financial plan and a base case financial model, which contain the financial approaches and solutions that are feasible and reliable. Among other elements, the financial plan identifies anticipated financial institutions, providing financial close security, as well as anticipated lenders for the providing project funding. Also identifies selection of activities for completing commercial and financial close. As I mentioned, it will also require a base case financial model, which includes financial forecasts, projections, and calculations of expenses and repayment of project debt by the contractor, including the project schedule, sources and uses of project revenue by the contractor, and expenditure assumptions consistent with the submitted bid proposal and financial plan. So as mentioned earlier, the bidder can provide its own internal financing or access other lenders, including the TIFIA program. Note, if the TIFIA program is part of the financial plan, the bidder must agree to be bound by the TIFIA indicative term sheet. In awarding the project to the lowest responsible bidder, a few notes. We will consider whether all required information has been provided and make a reasonable good faith determination that the financial proposal is a feasible approach to obtaining the necessary financing. The special provisions identifies the department's determination of feasible and reliable financial approach and solutions, and it includes these things such as this: sufficient commitment from core lenders and core underwriters, or evidence that the contractor has the financial capacity to self-finance. Reasonableness of financing costs and financing assumptions, and the proposed steps and timeframes for reaching commercial close and financial close consistent with the requirements of the bid proposal financial provisions. So following selection as the low bidder and commercial close, the contractor will move to reaching financial close, which will have until March 31st, 2020. The financial model will be updated for the actual interest rates. Note, the contract price will not change, and the financial security will be released. The department will provide reasonable assistance to the contractor to achieve financial close, including a legal opinion regarding validity and enforceability of the construction contract, and financial information regarding the department's sources of funding. So now we'll return to the DCPCs, or the Deferred Contract Payment Certificates. So each month, the construction division will prepare an estimate of the work completed and the amount earned. We'll pay up to $7.5 million in cash for the amount earned, subject to that maximum per calendar quarter. In any month, the progress payments have not yet reached the quarterly maximum. The remainder will be carried over to the next month and paid in cash if earned. So for example, $5 million is earned prior to or on or about March 15th for the April 2020 payment. The $5 million earned will be paid in cash, and the remaining $2.5 million will carry over and be available to be paid in cash in May if earned. If the amount due from the department in a month would cause the cumulative amount to exceed the $7.5 million quarterly maximum, the contractor can request that the department execute and deliver the DCPC for the balance. So continuing the example with $5 million cash paid in April 2020. If the next progress estimate to be paid in May is $4 million, $2.5 million would be paid in cash, and the balance of $1.5 million would be issued in a DCPC. So for each DCPC, the contractor will identify an initial holder or payee, which lender, in other words, a DCPC payment amount, the payment bank account, a payment due date, and then assign a DCPC number. And the contractor may then sell or assign the DCPC to its lenders and will borrow the discounted amount of the DCPC. So the department's obligation to make all payments due under the construction contract, including payments on the DCPCs, will be subject to appropriation by the legislature, as is the case with any project. Will include the amounts sufficient for the payment on the DCPCs in our annual budget, and we will prioritize payment of the DCPCs ahead of any new capital improvement projects executed after this contract. And the department's payment obligation will not be subject to withholding, offset, or termination of the contract. The special provisions also address change orders, so they may be paid in cash at the time the work is performed, or at NDOT's discretion, payment may be deferred. If cash payment is deferred, the contractor will be allowed to include simple interest at a rate of 3% until paid for work, for which there is no unit price in the bid. And per the special provisions, interest is applied from the quarterly payment date following the completion of the work until paid. So let's look at a graphical illustration. While the process for determining progress payments and issuance of DCPCs will occur monthly, for purposes of illustration, this bar chart shows quarterly distribution of the contractor-developed cash flow on a hypothetical $100 million contract. Note the quarterly $7.5 million cash payment by NDOT, represented in black. The contractor will determine the relationship with lenders and how the draws on the lender financing, if any, will take place. Payments by NDOT on the DCPCs will continue beyond construction until fully paid. So we had a handout, I don't know if it made its way around. So handout shows a potential conceptual approach for the contractor to use. For discussion purposes, this outlines a potential approach to estimating monthly draws and the issuance of DCPCs on a hypothetical $100 million project. Construction costs. In the interest of time, I won't go through all of the lines in the handout, but let me just, it illustrates a few things. Page 1 shows how the contractor develops internal estimates of monthly construction expenditures. Page 2 of the handout, the contractor calculates an estimated amount to be financed and the amount of interest that will accrue. Contractor then, page 3, adds the estimated interest, financing costs, and financing contingency to the proposed bid. Fourth step, contractor estimates the amount and timing for issuance of the DCPCs. And finally, the contractor then retains or sells the DCPCs to the lenders. And we'll be available to answer questions on that if you have them. We've got Brian Grody from Mercator Advisors here with us today. So here's another illustration of the flow of funds. We mentioned first, NDOT determines the value of the work accepted in the prior month. Step 1. And NDOT pays the contractor party either in cash or by issuing DCPCs to the contractor. Number 2. The contractor then, number 3, sells the DCPCs to what's called a Special Purpose Vehicle, or SPV. A Special Purpose Vehicle is a bankruptcy remote entity established by the contractor with the sole purpose of borrowing funds from a lender and using the proceeds to purchase DCPCs from the contractor. Step 4, SPVs deliver the DCPCs and draw requests to the lenders. And finally, the lenders make the loan disbursements to the SPVs, which use the proceeds to purchase the DCPCs from the contractor. All of steps 2, 3, 4, and 5 occur somewhat simultaneously. So once construction is complete, or nearly complete, payments will shift to being made on the DCPCs. Step 1, NDOT makes the $7.5 million quarterly payment to the SPVs directly, and the SPVs then make the debt service payments to the lenders. Step 2. So next we'll talk a few minutes about the TIFIA option. Last year we reached out to the U.S. Department of Transportation's Build America Bureau to learn more about the TIFIA loan program and what they can offer. So the TIFIA option includes fixed interest rates based on U.S. Treasuries, and interest does not accrue until the TIFIA proceeds are drawn, and there's no prepayment penalty under TIFIA. So if TIFIA is part of the contractor's financial plan, there are a number of TIFIA-specific requirements. First, be required to file an application with the Build America Bureau, obtain credit ratings from 2 rating agencies, such as Fitch, Moody's, or S&P, and then finally satisfy any other requirements and conditions precedent to the TIFIA loan. So earlier we spoke of the TIFIA indicative term sheet. The term sheet includes terms and conditions specific to the TIFIA option, including, these are the 4 main steps. Establishment of the special purpose vehicle that we mentioned, a sale and purchase agreement between the contractor and the SPV providing for purchase of the TIFIA DCPCs issued by NDOT, a loan agreement between the SPV and TIFIA so that the SPV may borrow funds from TIFIA to purchase the DCPCs from the contractor. And the TIFIA DCPCs will be assigned to TIFIA as collateral. And then fourth, other conditions related to the timing of sale and purchase of the TIFIA DCPCs. So now I'm really pleased to welcome and introduce Vishal Joshipura, who will be sharing details about the TIFIA loan program, and will also be available later to address questions. Vishal, welcome.
Thank you, Lynn. Glad to be here. My first trip to Nebraska, hopefully not the last. But no, it's always good to actually meet people who are involved in the project rather than just talking about it from an office in DC. So glad to be here, glad to meet all of you, and as Lynn said, available to answer any questions following this. Much of what you will see in my presentation, Lynn has already covered, so I'll not dwell in a lot of detail, but at least I'll take this opportunity to talk a bit about what Build America Bureau is and what we do. But just before I start, show of hands, could folks tell me how many of you are familiar with the Build America Bureau? Expected. So, and I'm sure most of you were not familiar with us 2 years back. So that's what I'll do. I'll spend a little more time talking to you about what do we do and how long we've been doing this. As I mentioned earlier, I'm an underwriter with the Bureau. So think of Build America Bureau as a bank. It is run like a bank in most instances, but we have some policy goals as well. The policy goal being furthering transportation projects in the country. And we provide financing to transportation projects across the country. We've been working in 21 states so far as TIFIA is concerned, and the other programs in further other states as well. So we've been around for a while, but it is kind of an oddity within the USDOT. USDOT's main function is setting policy and providing grants, but the Build America Bureau provides loans. So there is a fundamental difference because the money needs to be paid back. And that drives a lot of differences in how we deal with projects versus what the other parts of DOT do when they come through grant funding and so on. So as I mentioned, we'll talk a little bit about the Build America Bureau. We'll talk about the TIFIA loan benefits, how they differ from a commercial loan. The underwriting process. Hopefully one of you will be the apparent low bidder, and then you would deal with us directly until we reach financial close, and then also not with me but my colleagues post financial close. So we'll talk a little bit about the underwriting process today, the proposed structure, and the selected loan terms. And Lynn has covered some of it, but we can talk in more detail, but I'll probably not take a lot of time discussing that. The Build America Bureau was set up in 2015 under the FAST Act, and it was established in July 2016, but the FAST Act in 2015 was what set it up. FAST stands for Furthering America's Surface Transportation. Like most things in DC, people love acronyms there. And more than that, the new administration comes in and changes acronyms. So the infra and build grants instead of FASTing, which is essentially the same thing. We are a one-stop shop for innovative project finance and delivery. So conventional project financings or conventional financings are PAYGO financing is what Nebraska DOT has been doing, or bond financings, municipal debt financings. We are still a little bit of an aberration when it comes to infrastructure, transportation financing in the country. But we drive that in the country. We are part of the Office of the Undersecretary of Transportation for Policy. Until last year, or until actually earlier this year, we were part of the Federal Highway Authority, and that was because the program was set up under the FHWA a long time back. But we moved to the OST in May this year. We manage 3 credit programs: the TIFIA program, the RIF program, and private activity bonds. TIFIA and RIF are both loan programs. So we provide loans. TIFIA focuses on surface transportation, and RIF focuses on railway. And the next slide talks a little bit about the history of these 2 projects. PABs are a little bit different. We don't provide financings for PABs, but we authorize them. When we authorize a PAB issuance, essentially the issuer, in that case, gets the authority to issue bonds which are tax exempt, even though they are used for a private purpose. But we're just authorizing that. We're not really providing any money, so we're not really underwriting or doing any reviews on those projects. It is checking a few boxes, and if you meet that, you get a PAB authorization. We also provide technical assistance for NEPA and public-private partnerships. So we have folks who do that, who provide training for public-private partnerships, what they are and how you go about doing that, and so on and so forth. And we've been doing that for a while. So as I mentioned, even though the Build America Bureau has been around for only 3 years, the programs by themselves have been around for a very long time. TIFIA was set up in 1999 or 98. RIF was set up around the same time. The loans, the first loans that were provided were in 1999 and 2002. We focus on the TIFIA program here because that's the loan program that we use to finance, hopefully, this project. But the first loan was provided in 1999. In all, we have lent around $32 billion and 81 projects. These projects have been in 21 states. Bulk of it is highway. So that's the bars you see here. These are highway projects, which and then followed by transit. And then we also do like a little bit of bike pedestrians and intermodal projects, multimodal projects, a little bit of rail, which has a surface transportation component, and transit-oriented development. But our bread and butter is highway projects, which is what this is. And the 21 states that have access to TIFIA financings have been kind of most populous states until recently. And that is a function of a couple of things. One is project awareness or the program awareness. People deal with us, like Nebraska, for instance. Like hopefully you deal with us on this project and realize that, you know, these are really not bad folks. You can actually deal with them. So then people start dealing with us more. So there is familiarity. And then also a function of the project. We need to get paid back, right? So the loans need to be paid back, and many of the projects that we do are toll financed. So the DOT or the private agency, if it's a B3, constructs the road, then starts tolling it, and the tolls are what pays our loans back. So that necessarily means that these projects are always in the most populous parts of the country, which you'd see in California or on the East Coast, New York and Virginia, in the South, in Texas. We've also done projects in North Carolina. So that has been a bulk of our loans, but of course, especially in the new administration, there is a lot of focus on rural America, and that's kind of part of the drive in the last couple of years to do more projects in rural America. We have been trying to do that, but we kind of, it's a little bit hamstrung because there needs to be a revenue source to pay us. And if there is no sufficient or credit-worthy revenue source, then we can't work with it. But we are working around that mechanism, and then the current project is a very good example of what we're doing to alleviate a situation where the project does not pay for itself. It's not viable to toll it, but then there's another revenue source which is able to pay us. So we can get really, really creative when it comes to repayment sources. So long as it checks all the boxes and is creditworthy, we can be paid pretty much for any source which is not federal. We cannot be paid from federal sources because you can use federal sources to pay back a federal loan. And so we have been fairly creative in terms of repayment sources. There have been sales taxes, or there have been fuel taxes, like we have in this case a mix of both. But there have been other designated taxes. There have been registration fees, bridge surcharges, a mix of several things, you name it. So over the years, we've done a fair amount of financing using a very different source of repayment. But tolls and taxes remain the main sources of our repayment. Benefits. It's safe to say, so far as transportation is concerned, there is nobody out there which can provide what we can do. We have our constraints, right? So it's a federal project, so the project needs to be federalized and so on. But in terms of financing, there is really no other agency out there which does what we do in the transportation sector. The interest rates are really low. As Lynn mentioned, these are approximately treasury rates. So these are treasury rates plus 1 basis point is how it's calculated, and you see that calculation in your term sheet. I did this last week. The rates were, when I did this PowerPoint, it was 2.12% for 35 years, which is the maximum we can go, and 1.61 for 10 years. On this loan, we don't expect to go to 35. We expect maybe around 10 years. So That's what I saw today or yesterday. The rates were 1.73% for the 10-year loan. To contrast ourselves with a commercial loan or a bond financing, right? On a TIFIA loan, you draw when needed. When you do a bond financing, when you go out and do a municipal debt financing, you have to draw the whole amount all at once, and then you start paying interest on that. That can add up to tens of millions of dollars, sometimes hundreds, if it's a large project over the duration of construction. But for a TIFIA loan, you only draw when you need the money, so you don't pay any interest on the amount that you don't draw. You also don't pay any commitment fees. So that makes a huge difference. You're able to capitalize interest. We can go really long. Like interest is usually capitalized during construction, and for toll road projects, it's capitalized 5 years post-construction as well. So the people don't start repaying us until after year 10. There are no prepayment penalties, which is really important. For a bond or even for a commercial bank, if you prepay, you have to pay a penalty. And we don't have it. You can prepay us anytime, no penalties. Negligible fees, irrespective of the loan amount. Our largest loan for I-66 in Virginia is $1.3 billion. The fees we charge is $15,000 net per annum. So it increases in line with CPI, but it's negligible, right? It's 15,000 is really negligible in the broad scheme of things, and that doesn't change based on the loan size. We have a very flexible repayment schedule. We don't really require mortgage-style payments. We have certain criteria that needs to be met. Some metrics, so we don't need to bother about it, but so long as you're able to meet those metrics, the payment can be as flexible as you want it to be. For toll road projects, for instance, 50% of our loan is paid in the last 10 years of a 35-year period. And then for other projects, again for toll roads, it's not mortgage style, it increases in line with your revenues. Sometimes the payment stops in the middle and then restarts if the agency wants to do another project in that time and then pay down. On the other project, as I mentioned, we can get really creative. So it's very, very flexible, and that's also very unique compared to some of the other sources of financing that you see out there. This is the underwriting process. This is what we will do when hopefully one of you gets selected as the apparent low bidder and gets confirmed as a low bidder. So what I've done is I've put in a very broad timeline. It is January to April. And as said, the target is to reach financial close on 31st of March 2020. And there are 3 blocks, right? The grayish one, which I guess you don't see here, or say it's a white one, is the borrower responsibility. The blue one is our responsibility, and then this is the joint responsibility. What will happen is, once you get confirmed as a low bidder, as Lynn said, your financial proposal is due within 3 days post-confirmation. That information can come to us as well. So your plan of finance, your financial model, the construction contract, which is a draft at that stage, and anything supporting all of this, we start reviewing it. And for the term sheet that you've received, you've done our due diligence as well. So that due diligence, that analysis is focused on our source of repayment. So where is that? What are the sources of revenue? What funds the appropriation? How does the appropriation process work? What's the construction project or construction contract going to look like? All these things we are doing now, and that's what drives the terms that we offer to you under our term sheet. When the next stage of the process starts, then the analysis will be focused on you as a contractor. Unlike other projects, under this structure, we are not exposed to most of the risks on the construction side, so our due diligence is going to be very light compared to what we do on a typical project financing. But we still need to go through the motions. We have to go through your plan of finance. We have to make sure that it is achievable. We are not exposed to any other financing risks that you are taking. So those are the things that we will do. We'll look at the financial model. In parallel, we will start reviewing and negotiating the loan terms. So what you have is a term sheet. And in December, when you are putting your bids together and the month following when NDOT is reviewing the bid, the plan is to start working on the loan agreement draft, which is a more expanded version of the term sheet that you'd see. So we will start working on the draft. We'll send you the draft in January, and then we will go through it and negotiate. Hopefully, again, I think on this loan we don't have a lot to negotiate because we will not give a very complicated loan agreement, but we will still need to do that over the latter half of January and most of February. Then, sometime around mid-February is when you actually submit your application. So what happens is, under the statute, we are supposed to review an application within 30 days, and then after reviewing and confirming that the application is complete, we have 60 days to close a loan, if we want to close a loan. So that statutory clock is very inflexible. We can't really do anything about it. So to avoid getting into a situation where we're running into this timeline and we have to take a decision one way or the other or restart the process, we only ask folks to submit the application once the pre-work has been done. Once we know that the due diligence is complete, we are going to close a loan and we can close it within X number of days, then we ask you to submit an application. So that application, you see the format on our website, fairly straightforward information. This is required. You submit an application, and then we go through our approvals requirement. It's a government, right? So we have several layers of government approvals required. I have to brief 5 different meetings, and the briefings go all the way up to the secretary, and she then ultimately signs off. So every loan needs to have a separate briefing with the secretary, but before the secretary, we need 1, 2, 3, and 4 levels of approvals. So we will do that over the latter half of February and most of March following this, following that we can close. And once you close, it moves on from my team, the underwriting team, to the portfolio management for actual disbursement and monitoring and so on. So that's the process. Of course, happy to answer any questions on that following the presentation. You've already seen this. Lynn talked about the structure. Lynn split the diagram in 2 slides. This is 1 slide, but it's the same process. The DCPCs will be issued by NDOT to the contractor, which is you, or this up to $7.5 million. There will be cash payments during construction, and then these DCPCs are sold by the contractor to an SPV, and the SPV uses the loan proceeds to buy those the contractor. The reason why we need this SPV, this one, is twofold. A special purpose vehicle, Lynn briefly alluded to it, but we want to be separate from the contractor's other affairs. This DCPC structure needs to be completely separate from the contractor. So in an unlikely case that a contractor goes bankrupt or there is an issue with the financing, we are not exposed to that risk. So in technical terms, it's called a bankruptcy remote structure, which means that this company, which is our borrower, is remote from the contractor's bankruptcy. This is fairly standard in project financings, but we think that it's an efficient way of achieving this in this structure as well. The other reason why we need this is because TIFIA is in the business of giving loans. TIFIA is not in the business of buying DCPCs. So if we were to eliminate this middleman and then just have a sale and purchase between TIFIA and the contractor, we would say, we are buying DCPCs and then giving you the money for it. That's not our business, right? Our business is to provide a loan. That's why we need this artificial structure in the middle to be able to provide a loan and sign a loan agreement and then get paid back from the DCPC. So when the DCPCs are paid, the payment can come directly to the SPV, or in fact, it can go directly here as well. I'm sure NDOT and us both are flexible so far as how that is worked out, but the payment goes back and then that is used to repay our interest. So the dotted lines here are the certificates, and then the solid lines are cash flows. But this same structure is there also in our term sheet, and of course you've free to ask any questions you have on that one.
Hey, Michelle,
Mm-hmm.
if I may,
Sure.
I was going to wait until you finish your presentation, but for the audience, I know you put on every slide confidential and pre-decisional. I can understand the pre-decisional. Could you elaborate a little bit about the confidential? I mean, we're going to release this to everybody. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, ignore it. I think I have to say it was I understand the limitations of it not being confidential, so it's okay. It is definitely pre-decisional. So this is something which we have in all our PowerPoints, and it didn't really strike me until you pointed out that, well, it doesn't really work in this case. Okay, so you have the term sheet. I will just highlight some of the kind of basic terms of the term sheet, right? And the loan amount is restricted to 33% of eligible project costs. Eligible project costs means the costs that are eligible for the TIFIA financing. And under the statute, we can finance some costs, but we cannot finance others. Like, for instance, costs in the nature of operations. If you're financing operations during construction because the road is an expansion or the project is an expansion and not a new greenfield project, then you can't finance the cost of operations. You cannot finance payments to the TIFIA program to reimburse for our advisors and so on, or for rating agencies and stuff like that. There are some exclusions, but most of the construction cost in this case is eligible. What is also eligible is pre-development costs incurred by NDOT. So if NDOT has spent money on design, NDOT has spent money on right-of-way acquisition, those get added to the construction cost for the purpose of calculating the TIFIA loan amount. One wrinkle, of course, here is that by statute we can go up to 49%, right? We have never gone to 49%. By statute, we were limited to 33% until 2015. In FAST Act, they increased the authority to go to 49%. We've never done that because the objective has been not to crowd out private financing, to help the project be bankable and reduce financing costs to some extent, but not do everything ourselves. There is an effort to approve up to 49% for this project. But that's all I can say currently. I really don't have any more information. I wish I could. Hopefully that works. In that case, 33 becomes 49. But for now, assume that it is 33% in your calculations. Interest rate will be set on the date of financial claims. This is different than what you typically see on, say, a commercial bank, right? The commercial bank will give you a term sheet which says interest rate of X%. We can't do that because our interest rate is set on the date of financial close. So when you submit your financial proposal, when you calculate your bid, you would have to assume an interest rate. You can see interest rates every day because it's based on the published index. You can see how it moves, but you would have to take an informed view on what the interest rates could be when we close around end of March. We can't avoid that, unfortunately. We need 2 investment grade ratings. What this means is, for folks who are not from the financial world, in the credit ratings from S&P or Fitch and others go from a range of AAA, which is the best, highest rating, to junk bond, which is like several different ratings, all the way up to D and E and so on, D, I think. But the ratings that we need are what they are called BBB-, which is the minimum investment grade rating. And all our projects need to be above, at or above an investment grade rating. You need 2 ratings from 2 agencies, 1 rating from 2 agencies to close, and then every year thereafter, you have to submit another 1 rating saying that the rating is the same or it has improved. It could go lower as well, that's not a problem, but you do need to submit 1 rating every year thereafter until the loan is paid off. The loan can be drawn anytime from financial close to 1 year post substantial completion. It's up to you, right? We don't really tell you when you can or cannot draw us. 1 year post substantial completion is our statutory limit. We are supposed to finance projects, constructions. So we can't finance operations. As I mentioned, we cannot also refinance loans. So if the construction is already complete, and 5 years later, you took another loan for construction, but then 5 years later you want to refinance that loan, we can't do that. We can refinance loans taken during construction, and then if our loan is being used to pay back that construction loan within 1 year post substantial completion. That we can do. So, for instance, if you want to take out a commercial loan or a bond financing to finance your construction, and then immediately post construction you want to refinance that with a TIFIA loan, you can do that. And then the loan payment is important, right? The repayment is only from the DCPC payments by NDOT. There is no recourse to contractors' assets or cash flows. We are bankruptcy remote, but then that also means that we have no recourse to your other assets. We have no recourse to your other cash flows, other projects. We will pay solely based on the DCPC payments if there is no appropriation, for instance, and the loan is defaulted because lack of appropriations or insufficient appropriations. That is not your problem, right? That's not the contractor's problem. That's NDOT's problem. And we will have contract arrangements with NDOT to take care of those kind of eventualities. But we don't come to you, contractor, and say, well, we weren't paid on this DCPC by NDOT, so you pay us from your other sources. We don't have that access. Fees and expenses of the SPV will need to be borne by the contractor, though, because, well, this SPV, as we just talked about, needs to be set up. Their banks will do this for you. It doesn't cost a lot. In the term sheet, we have an exhibit which talks about potential options for this and also tells you about costs. But that will need to be borne by the contractor, and so that needs to be included in your bid costs or the project costs. And our due diligence fees that we will incur post selection of the preferred bidder will also need to be reimbursed prior to financial close. That's what we call a condition precedent, but those are things that need to be done before we close the loan. The rest of the information is already there in the term sheet. NDOT has shared that with you last week, so I think it's not. You've not had it for a long time, but if you have any other questions on the term sheet or anything else that I mentioned, do let me know.
Microphone, please.
Has TIFIA issued RFPs for its counsel and financial advisor, or are you going to wait to do that to see if you were approached and then issue the RFPs?
No, we've already done that. So for the term sheet issuance and this whole structuring, we get our advisors on board well before. So we have our advisors. Ernst & Young is our financial advisor, and Clifford Chance is our legal advisor. So they're both on board. They will both continue on for the next phase as well.
This is probably for Lynn, but the question is, if the bidder, the apparent low bidder, is not able to get a financial plan approved, do they forfeit their bid bond?
The bid bond is a proposal bond, and the bid bond is to ensure that you sign the contract. The financial close security will replace the proposal bond at the time you sign the contract. So submission of the financial plan and the information about the lenders and your plan to get to financial close, whether you're going to use TIFIA or not, or whether you're going to sell bonds. But just to try to avoid the confusion about the different bonds, there's a proposal bond when you submit your bid proposal, you become a parent low bidder, that proposal bond is still in place. You submit your financial information to NDOT to show them how you solve the financial solution. And then, so to answer the question, you're going to replace the proposal bond with your financial close security and your contract bonds, which secure your performance of the contract to get to financial close. I don't know if that explained it or not, but it didn't. Okay, I'll try it again. Your proposal bond is to secure you signing a contract. Signing a contract may or may not be the time when you achieve financial close. You have up until the end of March of 2020 to do that. So when you sign the contract, Great, proposal bond goes away. You now submit a financial close security, either a form of bond or letter of credit, and the intent of that security is to secure your obligation to get to financial close by the end of March. So you're under contract, proposal bond goes away.
I think you might be asking if you're selected as the apparent low, and then you submit your financial documents 3 days thereafter. If we decide that your plan is not feasible, do you forfeit your bid bond? And I think the answer to that is no, because we will go to the next bidder. Do you understand what I'm saying? And I don't expect that we would forfeit the bid bond if we determined that they could not read, or that the documents they submitted did not pass or pass-fail. But maybe, we don't know.
Well, that's a decision to be made by your department. But,
Certainly, if we go to the next person, I don't anticipate that we would forfeit your bid bond.
if you submit a proposal, and to speak frankly and not legally about this, it's got a crappy financial plan with no way in heck you're going to get closed, then that's an issue, isn't it? And maybe you shouldn't have submitted that proposal to begin with. So it's very important when you submit your proposal with a hard contract price and a plan to achieve financial close, that you do whatever's necessary with due diligence, or hire a financial advisor, or go to your bank and get all of those commitments lined up. Because as soon as you're selected or notified that you're a parent low, we're going to want all that information, and we're going to start combing through that information. Now, NDOT's not going to go there and second guess everything you submit. But there is a level of feasibility and reliability when you submit a financial plan. And that financial plan, as I said, has got to be complete, reviewed by lenders if you've got lenders. It's got to have commitments from lenders, or it's got to have a commitment that you will adhere to the term sheet of the TIFIA loan. Now, you may have more than one lender. You may have TIFIA, you may have a bank, you may have bonds, you may have banks. You may decide to finance the whole thing yourselves. And we're not telling you how to do it. We're just telling you, if you give us a plan, it better be sound, it better be reliable, it better be achievable. So I'm not here to say that you're going to be at risk for your proposal security at that point. But we, as Marty said, what we may then do is go to number 2, and you're no longer the apparent low, and you just wasted all of our time and yours as well, submitting something that's never going to get to financial close.
I guess what I said may be one of those things that you can't rely on. we will think about this, but from my perspective, I don't anticipate if we went to the second low that there would be a forfeiture of the bid bond, but that's not my decision to make. If nobody makes it, I'm not sure what we do. So that'll be something we'll clarify in the documents to come.
Okay, I have 2 questions. I'll do this slightly more complicated, but probably obvious answer one first. If financial close is not achieved by the apparent low bidder, that won't be known potentially until March 31st. Is it DOT's intent then to go to the second place bidder at that point in time? And if so, no.
No, you're under contract. I don't see how we can do that. Marty?
The primary question is the second place bidder expected to hold their offer open for some period of time after midday? And if so, is that done at the risk of interest rate changes?
I think we'd have to re-procure, because at that point we're under contract. It's no longer a proposal situation. We're in a commercial relationship with somebody, and that somebody didn't do what they were supposed to do. We'd probably go right out again and seek new bids. And again, the good news is, it's not good news when that happens. We never want that to happen. But you know, I think the DOT would be flexible under those circumstances, particularly if you can make a good case why you weren't able to achieve financial close. Now, the DOT is going to have a few obligations to help you get there. I think one of Lynn's slides said that the DOT will assist you in and getting, satisfying whatever conditions the lenders have that are applicable to the DOT. Because the DOT is the source of payment here. And so the lenders are going to want to do diligence. They're going to want to find out, what the source of the revenue is that's going to pay these DC-PC things. And so it's up to the department to provide some reasonable assistance to you to get to financial close. But let's say the market just falls apart, or lenders decide they're not going to lend anymore, and there's some just severe market disruption, which is the reason why you're not able to get to financial close. I don't think the intent of the department is to glom your financial close security and spend another 2-3 months trying to find a new contractor.
Second question. Yeah, second question. Probably not for you though, Barney.
Oh, okay.
As of right now, the bid items do not include a financing bid item. Is the intent for DOT that contractors will include all financing costs within our normal bid items?
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I got an easy one.
Yeah, I think that we said here, and we also say in the bidding documents, that the interest rates, and financing costs are to be spread logically throughout the bid items. Again, we're still going to be doing our due diligence on the bids to make sure that they're not materially or numerically unbalanced. And it'll be a challenge, but there are some things that are just obvious, and we want you to make it as big a challenge for us as possible. That makes sense. Okay, other questions? Okay. And again, we'll take these questions and evaluate whether we need to add information to the procurement documents to make sure that we have clarity. And again, if you don't want to ask questions here, you can always ask questions on BidX. But we are in the procurement phase, so and this is a design bid build project, so we still need to follow those procedures. We've had a couple people join us since we did introductions this morning, and have the young man introduce himself. No? We passed the microphone around this morning, Kyle, so if you would.
Sure. Am I supposed to talk?
No, please don't talk.
Good morning, everyone. Kyle Schneeweiss, Director of the Department. I just want to do a few thank yous, and I'm sure this happened before, but just so I can do it. Shaw, thank you for coming. We appreciate you making the trip to Nebraska. I hope it's not your last. I hope you're loving this good life that we have here. You're welcome to stay as long as you'd like. And I want to thank a few people at the department. We are really trying to move our business forward, trying to find new ways to do things, to serve the people of our state, to save money, to get projects done faster. And there's lots and lots of examples and lots of people to thank. But on this project, there have been a few people who have been just pushing that rock for a long time. And so, Lynn, thank you for all of your work. Marty, you have been an amazing force to be reckoned with. We appreciate your work. Khalil and Mo, your leadership. And then Steve McCullough here, I don't see him. Steve, thank you for all your work on the engineering side. It's been just fantastic. So there's lots of more people to thank, but those guys are the people who deserve a ton of credit. So with that, thank you all for being here. It is amazing to see this many people here. This project I got asked about it yesterday as I'm out and about around town. People still don't believe we're going to be delivering this project after 40 years, and here we are. And it's so good to see all of you, and I can't wait to break ground in a few months. So thank you all.